Can the Heat look to a recent Hawks team as inspiration for the upcoming season? We explore Miami's path to maximizing a roster without a superstar. Plus, the Big Diesel joins Miami on today's 25 and 25 on this episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. However you might be tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real Jam Radio, here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. We have a great show for you today. We're going to talk about our next installment in our 25 of 25 series with a look at the man who, David, could be credited for turning the Heat into the franchise they are today, at least in large part. We'll get to that here in a second. But let's start with this question from our Locked On Heat insider community. This question comes from Billy Kuhn, who writes in, should the Heat look to be the modern 2015 Hawks with Al Horford, Paul Millsap, Jeff Teague, and Kyle Korver? Going into that season, they had a combined 4 All-Star appearances with Horford at three, Millsap at 1. Going into this season, Miami has 5 All-Star appearances, 3 for Bam, 1 for Hero, and 1 for Wiggins. I'm not saying that all 4 of our, quote, medium 4 are going to get the nod, but combined, all 4 are better than the 4 Hawk players were at the time. It's an interesting concept, David.
Yeah.
It is funny how 10 years later, believe it or not, people still talk about that 2015 Atlanta Hawks team,
right,
as like this beacon of hope. If you're a team that doesn't have a consensus top 10 guy, multiple fan bases across the league, in one season at least, it feels like 90% of fan bases in one season since the 2015 Hawks have talked themselves into, maybe we could be this version's 2015 Atlanta Hawks. That team was really good. Before we get into whether or not Miami can copy some of that, can kind of catch some of that lightning in a bottle. What do you remember about that 2015 Hawks team that made them so special, just beyond the fact that 4 of those guys made an all-star team that year?
Well, it's kind of an apples to orange comparison with this version of the Heat, because to me, when I think of those Hawks teams, it was the 2014 Spurs walked so those Hawks could run. Mike Budenholzer, a disciple of Greg Popovich, he took what we saw from San Antonio, which is a far more talented team, and he implemented a similar offense where you had just 5 good, versatile players who could do so much. It kind of was a natural descendant of seeing Chris Bosh at the 5, and then all of a sudden you see the Spurs involved into this really pass-centric offense where you're finding the right shooter at the right time, and everybody's capable of making a play, and you have these versatile skill sets with a Boris Diaw, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, etc. Again, much more talented. And then the Hawks able to implement something similar because you had Al Horford, who could stretch the floor, but he could make that smart pass, always a very high IQ player dating back to his UF days. Paul Millsap, my opinion, an underrated all-star player who was just capable of doing all these different things out in the court. He never excelled necessarily, or wasn't necessarily elite in any one area, but he was very, very good in so many different areas that made him a very productive and impactful player. And just everybody found a way to kind of coalesce into this really effective group. And that was what I remember watching those Hawks teams, is they were just like a better version of the Spurs team. And that's why, leading to the next part of the question there, the Hawks group kind of capitalized on a systemic change around the NBA where you were banking more on versatility. It was the evolution from the center-driven offense and taking away the big man to having a more versatile player at the 5 like Bosh, and then having it evolve even further where you had guys like Duncan and Horford be able to make plays out of that offense, stretch the floor, create different things where you could just bank on passing and leading to more effective shot-making ability. And so I think it was just like, you look at what Miami and other teams around the league have tried to duplicate, is just having guys that can do everything. And that's just the natural progression of what we see in the league now, is just elite athletes able to make plays in different ways, be versatile? Can they all stretch the floor? Can they all do things differently? And then if you have one or two players that could be elite at certain things, it probably leads to at least championship or at least contention status. And I think that's where the difference is. I don't know that Miami is capable of reproducing that.
Let me jump in really quick because
let's do it.
They were so ahead of their time, to your point, that Hawks team. The versatility was key. I mean, you just look at their stats, right? Paul Millsap averaged more than 3 assists per game. Al Horford averaged more than 3 assists per game. They were getting 6 assists per game from their front court.
Right.
That wasn't a thing back then. That's hardly a thing now, right?
Right.
And so you're getting that. Jeff Teague was a very high-level passer at that stage of his career. Kyle Korver was an elite three-point shooter. You've got like these 3-and-D wings kind of coming in and out between DeMar Carroll and Losha there. Yeah. Dennis Schroeder.
Yes.
Potentially a basketball Hall of Famer with what he's been doing for Germany here, coming off the bench for that team. So, there's a lot going for that team individually. And just to recap for people that might not remember that team from 10 years ago, they won 60 games that season in the Eastern Conference in a very weak East. And I remember Zach Lowe, writing for Grantland at the time, wrote tremendous column about why not the Hawks, because it was basically just LeBron's Cavs, and that's it. There was not another team in the Eastern Conference. There was no other contender. You think the East is wide open now? It wasn't really wide open because LeBron just had a stranglehold on the conference for the 10 straight years. But it was basically LeBron's team, nobody else. Like, everybody knew Cleveland was going to the finals. And then this Hawks team just sort of blossoms out of nowhere, wins 60 games, sends multiple guys to the All-Star game. It was like this big rah-rah win for team basketball, the fact that they got all these guys on the All-Star team, even though you could argue neither of them individually necessarily deserved, like, definitely has to be on the All-Star team. But that team was really good. They won 60 games. They were 6th in offensive rating. They were 5th in defensive rating. You mentioned the passing. Number 1 in assist percentage that season. They were also 3rd in true shooting percentage. So not only were they moving the ball a lot, they were getting efficient shots, and they were making them at a really high rate. They got to the free throw line. They made a ton of threes back then. You could also argue with all that versatility, yes, they were ahead of their time. They were also ahead of their time in just the fact that they were basically a 5-out offense.
Yep.
And Cleveland wasn't a 5-out offense. Miami's big three was an inverted offense, but it was not a 5-out offense.
Right.
That was a 5-out. Teague shot threes. Carroll shot threes. Korver shot a ton of threes. Paul Millsap averaged a career-high three-point attempts per game that year, which might as well, like today, that would be 8. You know what I mean?
Right.
Horford obviously was stretching the floor back then. So when we're talking about how Miami can become that version of the Hawks, it's not enough to simply just be 5-out, be versatile, because now everybody's caught up to that, right? Everybody in the league knows to try to do that. Right. So it would be finding the next thing that they could be ahead of on.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that, or maybe it's simply just make a bleep ton of shots. Again, they were 3rd in true shooting percentage that year. What if the Heat just come out and make a bleep ton of shots, and then that's how they lift the offense, and then they're good?
That's the hope. And I think we talked about it recently. You look at Miami's projected starting lineup, at least how we see it, and they're all capable of stretching the floor. They're all capable of hitting shots. It's having that one player, whether it's Tyler Hero or Norm Powell, perhaps even Bam Adebayo, who can draw defensive just effectively enough to kick it out and spray it to wide open shooters, and that they're capable of moving the ball effectively, perhaps even as effectively as those 2015 Hawks. Then they'll find those open shooters and generate the more effective and efficient shots that will lead to better shot making, higher percentages, higher effective field goal rates, and all those things tie together towards more success. I'm curious because I even as we're talking about this, I hadn't even thought of the Hawks comparison before. And I'm wondering what's the next step? What's the next evolution? Because Miami's roster does not have an elite player. I don't know what it is, because you do see teams here and there who are capable of dabbling in that 5-out offense or having multiple versatile players out there. And if that's the case, perhaps maybe a player like Nikola Jovic might be a better fit for that starting lineup. And we've talked about it before. Maybe not the starting necessarily, but at least adding another versatile player to a lineup that's featured perhaps late in games to generate more offense, because we do project that Nico's going to get more playing time this season than he did last. So I
think if
don't
you're
know what
looking
the
at
next step is.
the next thing, you talk to people around the league and everybody talks about the Indiana Pacers. Everybody talks about the Pacers. And what they did better than any other team last year offensively, they got into their offense really quick. And there are studies done that show the faster you cross half court within your 24-second shot clock, the higher your offensive rating goes on average. Like that math has been done, right? Like the work has been done on that. And Miami routinely does a very poor job of getting into their offensive sets quickly, right? And so that to me would be the next thing is, okay, just get into your offense. Like just do it. Like if you're making your first pass with 21 seconds on the shot clock as opposed to 16, it doesn't sound like a lot maybe in layman's terms, but like I'm saying, like the homework has been done on that to show that that's the difference between one of the best offenses in the league and one of the worst. And so that would be my thing.
No, it's a great point. And we have talked about that possibility too. And I think the absence of Jimmy Butler was going to help in that regard, because Jimmy did play a much more deliberate style, and he brought the ball up a little bit more slowly and precisely in order to generate the looks that he was prone to look for. But I see Kel'el Ware as being the obstacle to that too. He's just, can he have the stamina and the quickness to be able to get down court at just the right moment where they
got to study how Miles Turner did it, right? Because that's the Kel'el Ware comparison. It's it's a lot of trail threes, which could be a good thing, right? It's like, hey,
that could be it. That could be it.
Instead of having to drive, you don't have to run the full length of the court. You just have to run from one 3-point line to the other, which is a lot easier when you could pretty much do it in 2.5 steps because you're 7'1", right? We're gonna put a pin in this conversation then, because again, we keep hinting towards this other. Not to say it's like this huge show that we're gonna do, but like we are in the middle of studying this offense, and I don't think it's crazy to say that Eric Spoelstra, I think, is everything you thought about the Heat's playbook last year. I think that's in the recycling bin somewhere. I think they are completely going to revamp the offense. Not saying it's going to work. I'm just saying that they have to install a new offense because the team is just different now. And you and I have been doing the work on this for a few days, where we're looking at it and just trying to figure out, okay, what is the best version of this Heat team? You do look at the past, right? Whether it's those Hawks or last year's Pacers or Thunder or the Celtics the year before that. We know Eric Spoelstra is going to be looking at that stuff. But we'll keep talking about the offense in future episodes. For now, we're going to move on to our 25 of 25 series with a look at a legend.
Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you're organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Listen, you need help out there. Not everybody is as gifted at being able to manage their money as so effectively. And sometimes you need an extra tool. And that's where Monarch comes in. If you're saving up for a big purchase, you see something down the road you'd like to save up a little bit more money for, or even if you're just curious about how you spend your money currently and want to change those habits, then Monarch is the tool for you. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. This is our 25 of 25 series, looking back at the top 25 Heat players of the last 25 seasons. Each episode, we'll be taking an in-depth look at every player who made the list, as voted on by us and our Locked On Heat insider community, through the lens of what made them a definitive part of the franchise's history. The one and only Udonis Haslem checked in at number 8. And now, at number 7, he promised a championship when he arrived on the shores of South Beach, and he delivered. He goes by many nicknames, but for the Heat, the most important one is Superman next to the Flash. It is Shaquille O'Neal, David.
Hit on a lot of good points there, and I'll talk about those as well. Shaquille O'Neal had already won 3 championships and established himself as one of the most dominant players of all time. By the time, there were rumblings of his inability to coexist with Kobe Bryant on the Los Angeles Lakers. Fresh off a loss to the inferior Pistons in the 2004 finals, it was clear that O'Neal and Bryant were at odds with each other, and a choice had to be made about which direction the team would move forward. So on July 14th, 2004, the Lakers traded Shaquille O'Neal, the biggest star in the league, both literally and figuratively, to the Miami Heat in exchange for Caron Butler, Lamar Odom, Brian Grant, and a future first-round pick. The price was high, but it was worth it. Almost overnight, the power around the league shifted, and Miami was at the center of the basketball universe. With a big player came big expectations, as O'Neal guaranteed a championship parade down Biscayne Boulevard. O'Neal and Dwyane Wade would form a dynamic duo, Superman and the Flash, and carry the Heat to a 59-23 record to win the Eastern Conference. O'Neal averaged 23 and over 10 rebounds a game and was, according to Heat fans, robbed of an MVP trophy after he finished second to Steve Nash. In the playoffs, Miami nearly succeeded in making it to the finals, if not for a Wade rim injury that limited his impact. And for all of O'Neal's dominance during the regular season, it was also painfully obvious that he was no longer able to carry a team by himself, and the supporting cast around O'Neal and Wade just wasn't good enough in 2005. You could just look back as an aside, some of those names that were on the roster, it was surprising that they made it as good as they did. That was how good Shaq was in the regular season and how good Dwyane was at that point in time, that they were able to carry that team to almost 60 wins, considering they had Damon Jones as their starting point guard. No knock on Damon, but he wasn't a high-quality point guard. In 2005, Pat Riley executed what was at the time the biggest deal in NBA history, acquiring better role players like Jason Williams, Antoine Walker, and James Posey to maximize their championship window. And it worked. While O'Neal's averages dropped during the regular season, Wade's singular brilliance helped bring Miami their first championship and O'Neal's fourth in 2006. The team began to mirror the worst of O'Neal's approach to basketball the following season, however. Players were somewhat out of shape, disinterested, and focused less on the regular season. O'Neal himself only played in 40 games, and the team finished with a disappointing 44-38 record. He still made his third straight All-Star game with the Heat, but was much more reflective. It was more reflective of how many of Shaq's peers at the center position had simply gotten too old or retired. While there was hope that a veteran team could flip the switch in the playoffs, they were swept in the first round by a Bulls team that was far from dominant, but at least seemed to care. No one knew how O'Neal would approach the following season, but the optimism of 2004 was a distant memory. He would only play in 33 more games with Miami, and there were stories of O'Neal attacking Riley during a practice that might have ended badly if not for Alonzo Mourning's interference. Only recently, O'Neal revealed that he challenged Riley once again, and Riley ordered O'Neal to leave the practice floor. O'Neal refused, and according to the big man, he was traded to the Phoenix Suns the following day, burning a bridge with a third different franchise. Over time, the rift was repaired, and O'Neal's jersey hangs in the rafters, and he has spoken highly of his time in Miami, although he's also been clear that he didn't always appreciate Riley's no-nonsense approach. O'Neal's stint in Miami was a short one, just 3.5 seasons, but it did burn brightly and helped to establish a championship culture that has defined the team for 2 decades.
So I teased it at the start of the episode. There is no Miami Heat without Shaquille O'Neal. There is no championship culture without Shaq arriving with that star power and helping put Dwyane Wade on his shoulders and getting to where they got, which was on the precipice of a championship in 2005. And then obviously, ultimately, the franchise's first in 2006. Not only was he a great player who finished second in MVP voting that first year in Miami, because that's how dominant he still was when he arrived, he was a superstar, like you talked about, David. Like, it wasn't enough. Like, the Heat wouldn't be the Heat if they simply had a dominant player at that center spot that year. They become the Heat now because Shaq validated the entire franchise. And that is not an overstatement, unless you disagree. Shaq deciding, I'm going to leave Kobe freaking Bryant and the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm going to leave that team, and I'm going to choose, and there's a lot going on there, but I'm going to choose as my next destination, as the biggest NBA star in the world at this point, the Miami Heat, who had won diddly squat and had been pretty much worthless as a franchise up to that point, right? And so, yes, Pat Riley was here, Alonzo Mourning, Tim Hardaway, you had those years, but they didn't win anything, right? Like, there was a lot of teams that had runs and didn't win anything. This would be like Giannis being like, I want to go to the Memphis Grizzlies after the grit and grind era. It's just like, it's like, okay, cool. You had a couple of good runs in the playoffs, but who cares? You know,
Right.
outside of your own fan base, nobody cares. So Shaq validating the Heat franchise as a star destination changes everything. LeBron doesn't come in 2010 if Shaq doesn't come in 2005. That doesn't happen. And obviously, we know the ramifications of the Big Three era. So I remember, and I've told this story before on the podcast, David, I remember being on the school bus on the way to middle school,
Right.
outlining what a potential Shaquille O'Neal trade might look like in my composition notebook, and wondering, is it worth giving up Lamar Odom, Caron Butler, and Brian Grant for Shaq? And having that debate, because that first Dwyane Wade team that rookie year was was one of my favorite teams of all time.
Absolutely.
And to break that up for Shaq wasn't an easy decision for middle school West to make. And ultimately, that's the thing that Pat Riley did, though. He said, the hell with your emotions and your feel-good stories. I'm here to win a championship, and that's what he did.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, the 03-04 season was amazing and a lot of fun because they started off badly and ended so well, won multiple games in a row, and made such a great push in the playoffs. And then I think what it really highlighted more than anything else was that Dwyane Wade was a star in the rise. Like, he was so good as a rookie and was capable of such big moments in playoff scenarios that I think Riley in the front office recognized, oh, he's too good. And I remember at the time when the trade was consummated, that a lot of the talk was that Shaq agreed to join Miami because of Wade's ascending stardom and all this. But, looking back at it and the research that has come out since then, I don't know how much input he actually had. Like, at the time, it was just like, yeah, I'm going to go to Miami. And I wonder how much of that was him saving face or trying to show that, he had a choice in the matter. The Lakers didn't want him. They didn't want what became obvious, unfortunately, in his tenure in Miami, was that he was a little disgruntled, a little past his prime, maybe not that effective. But the wattage, the sheer wattage and stardom that he possessed was so singularly great that when he came to Miami, we were more than willing to accept all those warts, as glaring as they were, because he was a larger than life personality, and he was the biggest star. Like, as big as the moment was for LeBron James to announce in 2010 that he was joining Miami, it felt as similar or maybe even bigger because it was just different. It was just a different time. Like, you didn't have a TV special. You didn't have Woj tweeting about potential trade destinations or anything like that.
You didn't have superstars getting traded every deadline, right? Like, that just wasn't a thing that was happening.
Right. So it was just one day he's a Laker, and then you wake up on a random morning and there's the Miami Herald headline saying he's been traded to Miami.
I remember there's three newspaper sports section front pages that I remember in my childhood. Shaq getting traded to Miami.
Yeah.
Ricky Williams retiring.
Oh,
devastating. You know what for? Because there was another one where Ricky Williams shaved his head. He shaved he buzzed the dreadlocks off. And that was like, something's going on with Ricky. And then like a week later, there's kind of two that I'm conflating. And then one was when the Dolphins traded Adwale Ogunleye to the Bears for Mark Booker. Was it Mark Booker, a wide receiver? For some reason, I'm just telling you, just being factual. I just remember that one as well. But
no 2003 Marlins championship in there. I mean, come on.
Like, no, learning of it like that morning. Like, I watched the Marlins win the championship. Yeah, I remember that's fair learning of something via newspaper. We sound old. No.
I mean, it's different, right? The social media didn't exist. There was no
you didn't learn about it. You didn't learn about it from a Woj bomb on a alert on your iPhone. I didn't have a phone. I had.
And if the nightly news ended at 11, it was still 9 o'clock in California time. And you know what? Maybe the trade hadn't been finalized yet. And then you didn't find out until you saw the headline the next day. And so
back when newspapers printed. Yes, exactly. When papers used to print in the middle of the night. The last paper I worked for would print at like, what was our printing time? Like 8:30 p.m. West Pacific time. I was like, the game's not even over. Like, what do we, like, we couldn't run my recaps in the paper.
But you had the online version.
Yeah, the online version. The highest, we'll take a break here. We're going to get to where Shaq ranked among the panel. We'll get to some trivia and our biggest what if moment after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or service provider. The first person you called didn't answer. Did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. And that's why you need Open Phone. They're the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Open Phone lets you manage business calls and texts from a single app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. And their AI agent handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. Open Phone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you like that and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. The highest Shaq ranked among our panel was number 3. The lowest he was number 9. I had him at 5. David, you had him at 9. Let's jump into trivia.
Yeah. Do you want to discuss that ranking, or you want to save that?
Oh, if you have an opinion on it, yeah, we're racing against the clock here, but yeah, go ahead.
I had him at 9 just because of the shortness of the tenure, the fact that he was an incredible star to bring onto the roster, but his production did wane, and then there were so many things after the fact. And when I mentioned that he burnt a bridge, it really felt that way. Like it was just all the hope and everything else that came with him in 2004 was just out the door, and there he was trashing Riley, talking about playing with guys named Chris Quinn and talking badly about his teammates. It just left a sour taste in his mouth and our mouths. And then for 3.5 seasons, such a short tenure that's why I had him at 9th. I recognize how great he was when he was here. And at the same time, there were so many other things that I had to take into consideration. That's why I had him as low as I did. But moving on to
you did have Dragic, Hero, Haslam. Like you had some guys that we've already talked about above Shaq. I had Shaq. This is the highest I've ranked anybody so far that we've gotten to. There's only 4 players that I put above Shaq, and people could probably guess who those 4 players are.
Right.
I mentioned it before. There is no Miami Heat without Shaquille O'Neal. And I hear what you're saying about the way he went out and the short tenure and all these things, but the guy was at that stage when he first got here, the best player this team had ever had in a single season. Nobody in Heat history had ever had a season like Shaq had that first year. He was second in MVP voting that year. No Heat player ever sniffed that. Okay. Right. So you've got that sort of landmark thing. To me, it's like he was here for a good time, not a long time. You know?
Yeah.
Shaq, like, I don't care how long he was here. The impact that he made in essentially 2 years trumps anything that anybody that we've talked about has done so far.
That's fair.
On our list. So that's why I ranked him so high. Okay, trivia.
When O'Neal joined the team in 2004, Pat Riley tried to motivate him by comparing him to what player?
Oh, that's a good question. I remember this story. It was when Shaq first got here.
Yeah.
Was it Kareem?
No. It's Alonzo Mourning. Basically trying to get him into shape, and he actually he had Alonzo Mourning show off how ripped he was.
Oh, that's right.
And then Shaq responded by showing his numbers against Zoe, and he was like, I ain't going to do that. So that was Shaquille O'Neal. I was like, that's great that that's worked for Zoe and it's worked for you. I'm just a different kind of guy.
And you know what? I know we're like Heat culture, but Shaq wasn't wrong. He was way better than Alonzo Mourning. But I understand what Riley was saying. He's like, we can untap something. We could tap into another level for you, especially at this stage of your career.
Riley's not wrong. Yeah. I mean, had Shaquille been a little bit more disciplined about his weight and stuff like that during his Lakers tenure, I know the idea for him was, I'm going to put on weight because I'm going up against so many different big men, so many high-quality big men.
Well, it's what Duncan did in his late-stage career, right? It might have worked when Shaq was 26, 27, 28, but when Shaq got into his 30s, it wasn't – Tim Duncan slimmed down, right? And he was able to prolong his career because of that. So,
Exactly. Shaquille O'Neal was considered for the 1992 Olympic Dream Team, but which player was chosen instead?
Was that Leitner?
Yeah, good call. Yeah. He was going to fill the college spot there, and they passed. They already had Patrick Ewing on that roster, so they didn't really need Shaq. But they
did Shaq Did Shaq ever end up medaling
Yeah,
at
a couple of
Olympics?
times. He did the 94, and then he did the 96 and 2000 Olympics too, alongside Zoe.
Okay.
And Hakeem Olajuwon, who as an American citizen, wound up joining those teams as well. But what position does Shaq hold in both the cities of Miami Beach and Doral?
What position does Shaq hold?
Mm-hmm.
City, Miami Beach, and Doral. It's got to be some sort of like the czar of good times. I don't know.
He's actually a reserve police officer, sworn in on both
How am I
counts.
supposed to know that?
Because
All right.
he's talked about it. He's talked about being a law enforcement guy. He actually did play a cop, and I want to say
He did.
Grown Ups 1 or 2. I don't know
Yeah.
which movie it was, but yeah. Aside from that, he's been a police. He's actually been a reserve police officer sworn in like multiple cities around the country, and I don't know how he keeps track of it, but yeah.
Does he know he doesn't get paid for that? Because I know he'll take anything.
He
gets paid
has
for.
an official salary of like a penny, I think, or $1. I can't remember
really?
which one it was. Yeah. So he's actually sworn in, and there's even a story in Wikipedia where he like saw a hate crime taking place and wound up chasing down the suspect, and it was because of Shaquille O'Neal that the suspect was arrested and eventually charged with the crime.
So what is Riley even talking about? He's in shape. What are you talking about? He's running down suspects in the streets. I don't know what.
I think it was in his car, but still, could you imagine though?
In his car.
Like there you are. Let's see, you're tagging up a wall. All of a sudden, you turn around, Shaquille O'Neal's there standing.
I see Shaquille O'Neal, and I know reserve police officers don't walk around in a cop uniform, but I'm picturing Shaq in a cop uniform jumping a fence, trying to chase down the perp.
No, yeah, I'm turning myself in. Like I'm not going to put up a fight. No police, resistance there at any point. There, that's just not going to
work. Jersey worthy, yes. Jones Battier Zoe test, yes. Versus, you would go no.
I would.
Do you still
I like your argument, though.
Okay.
I like your argument. I get it. He represented something, and he was the kind of the harbinger of heat culture in a way. Like the groundwork was laid with Zoe and Hardaway in the late '90s, but championship heat culture evolved with Shaquille O'Neal's acquisition. So I can see the point. I still have. I just the sour taste is impossible for me to erase or forget, and so I can't give him the nod over a guy like Goran or Udonis.
So here's our sliding doors moment. It's our final category. It's the what if moment that could have changed the way we think about this player and how he is remembered. Did you have something here?
It's just the exit.
Okay. Interesting.
I think that would have been different because I think people still kind of remember, and he's been like made of Teflon in the sense that he's deflected all the things that he's done badly. Like he's ingratiated himself to Magic fans because they loved having him there because he was so big and cheerful, a big goofy guy.
He does a great job of rebuilding bridges.
He does.
He's literally
burns him. He burns him, then he comes back carrying the lumber and making goofy faces, and
he built a bigger bridge that costs more money and it's flashier and everybody likes it. And he's one of these guys that you can't stay mad at. How can you be mad at Shaq?
Even
watch him in one interview, you're like, I love this guy.
He was so severe, like Kobe Bryant. I'm talking about. He was so severe and serious about everything.
Yes,
and of course there was this feud for years. Shaq went in a club in Miami and sang, "Kobe, tell me how my ass tastes," and somehow wound up fixing that friendship. Like that's the ultimate sign. If you can come back from that one, like, hey man, the fact that I tried to attack Pat Riley, that's nothing. I can get that. That's a Tuesday, bro. I don't.
Pat Riley and Shaq they love each other now.
Yeah,
there's no ill will. Fella. There's nothing. Yeah, exactly. So, that's a great one, right? Like, so what if that just goes different? What if Shaq what if egos don't get in the way? And I'm not even going to blame Riley's ego. What if these egos don't get in the way? And there's now Shaq was still injury prone at that point. He was at a very different stage of his career. I mean, it was
lazy
dominance for 2 years and then injuries and then cliff. Right? Like with Shaq, it happened and it happened fast. It wasn't very gradual with him. And then, and so, yeah, who knows? Like, is he still traded for Sean Marion? Like, and all these things? Maybe, right? Like, maybe Miami, Dwyane Wade was on the rise. Obviously, the team it was taking a different shape. But in terms of the bad taste, could that have been done different? Here's my sliding doors moment. What if D Wade doesn't injure his ribs? In the 2005 Eastern Conference Finals? The Heat were up 3-2, as we remember. Wade misses game 6. He comes back for game 7, but clearly ineffective and hobbled. Like I think he shot like 30% in that game. It was not good. And the Heat lose. They blow a 3-2 lead to the Detroit Pistons, who go on to the finals. If Dwyane Wade doesn't hurt his ribs, the Heat win that series. They were up 3-2. They win that series. Maybe it goes 7 games. They win that series. They were the better team for the first 4.5 games of that series. If the Heat win then the finals, right, that year. So if they win in 2005, let's suppose, like, they still would have been great. Let's suppose they win in 2006. That's interesting. Because now we have a repeat champion where you mentioned the Bulls sweep. That 2006 Heat championship, I don't think is thought of on a big scale in terms of being that nobody like views that 06 Heat team as like a dominant team, as one of the all-time great teams. And I'm not saying that they should, but they're kind of like overlooked in that era of like a lot. It's like it's kind of in between Lakers stints is when that 06. It's kind of like the Rockets in between Jordan.
Yes.
But if they win in 05 and 06, right? Because then like you mentioned, the following year they get swept, and that was the first team in like 50 years that won the championship and then got swept in the first round the next year. Like that didn't happen. And I think that poisoned the 2006 championship a little bit. But if they're instead of that, if they're repeat champions in 05 and 06, now of course big butterfly effect. If they win in 05, do they have the hunger to go out and win in 06? Do they make some of the same offseason moves that they did that ultimately helped them win in 2000? Whatever, I don't know. But let's just suppose that they still have prime Shaq. They still have prime on the rise Dwyane Wade. Let's say that they repeat. They would have had a chance. Shaq ends up with 5 championships alongside Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, and Magic Johnson. He's already pretty much a consensus top 10 guy. But I do think that would have helped Shaq's like case in terms of being maybe an all-time top 5 guy. I don't know. And then Wade ends up with 4. Which is exactly how many LeBron has.
It's a big moment. I could see it. We've talked about it before, that butterfly effect. So many different things from Ray Allen's shot and now this. I don't know. It's hard to say exactly. If they had won those 2 championships, do they have a different all-time reputation? It's an interesting moment. I still think in terms of how Shaquille is viewed by the fan base. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think the exit has tarnished a lot of what was accomplished. Because even when you think of back to 2005, almost everybody 100% just chalks it all up to if Wade had gotten hurt or hadn't gotten hurt. It would have been very different. So there's no problem. It's not there's like a negative reflection of 2005. It's like they were really good that year. Wade gets hurt. They probably could have beat the Spurs because that Spurs team wasn't necessarily a dominant group either. So
I think we're talking about Dwyane Wade like we talk about Kobe at that point. Because we would have been talking
straight in 05, 06.
He would have won like repeat in 05, 06 and then repeat again in 12 and 13. You know, like it's just different. It's different for Dwyane more than it is for Shaq.
No doubt.
And so maybe that's not necessarily the assignment here, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it for us today. Thanks for listening. Let us know in the comments what you think about Shaq's career. Did the way it ended tarnish his time to you? Did that leave a bad taste in your mouth, or are you like me and just kind of forget about it and just remember the good times? Thanks for listening, and thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day.